Welcome back to episode 6, Connections with Jim Franco. Jim, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Great seeing you also. It's been a wonderful relationship with yourself and Babcock's Publishing. So thank you for the opportunity.
It's great to be with you, Jim. Jim, I want to go back in history just a little bit to talk about today and the future. I know that in one of your conversations with Bill Babcock, you talked about the fact your first job was a service station, correct?
Right.
Wow. And during that, let's go back and let's think about that. What was parts procurement as you as a service station owner like back in the day?
Well, now we're going all the way back into the early 60s, okay? And like I've said in other interviews, there was no technology. It was all, well, we did have a phone. And so, and I'm just going back to when I had my 76 service station for about 5 years. Now, I was fortunate because my auto parts store was Big M Auto Parts and was only about 3 blocks away. So a lot of times we'd run and get the part, they would deliver it. But I also can remember, even though I wasn't very highly educated, but I knew the value of dollars. So I personally would make sure the cores and the returns and the defectives were in a certain place in my service station, and I would actually have an invoice that I bought it from actually on that box, taped to it. So I personally would put them in my truck and drive down to the auto parts store and sit there and get my credit to make sure I got my credit. So, but everything was by hand in those days.
Walk us through. My car's in your shop and I need a set of spark plugs. What did you have to do to get those spark plugs, Jim?
I went in the office, I picked up the phone, I called Big M Auto Parts. I told them I have a 1954 Chevrolet 6-cylinder 235, and I need 6 spark plugs, a set of points, condenser, and a distributor kit. Thank you. And
then what happened?
I think, you know what? My memory's great. Now we're talking 6 years ago. I can't remember if they delivered to me or not, or we ran and got them. I can't remember that part. Darn it. But I did stock, belts and hoses and some of that stuff in my service station. But there's another question you asked me. How often did I see this auto parts salesman? Never. They had a counter. They sold parts. You want the parts? Come and get them. I don't even know for sure if they delivered. I can't remember that part. I think they did, but it was just old school. Pick up the phone and order the part, and get your credit. And that, by the way, all by hand. The statements, the invoices, all by hand.
So if you went and got it, if you Forrest Gumped down to the parts store, got the parts, and then ran back, you had a piece of paper, right?
Right.
That your receipt for those. Or if the delivery guy brought them, you had to stop and you had to sign that receipt, right?
Sure.
For those parts. So all of this is taking up time, and we all know the potential for the loss of that piece of paper, and we've already been through all the tracking on the office side. It slows everything down. So let's fast forward now to today or a few years ago, and Jim Franco in Autologue starts a product called eParts Connection and eParts Delivery. Walk us through how those help this process that we just talked about that was so arduous.
Well, ePart Connection we developed, it's close to 20 years ago. And it's once again, that beautiful internet I've talked about many, many times gave us the opportunity to develop a product that the installer, and early on, Triad was the only one that had electronic cataloging, because all of us had racks and racks of books to look stuff up in. But when online ordering came about, it just made all the difference in the world. because now the installer doesn't have to go to the phone. In fact, I had one guy said, I would rather order my own parts because I can't trust the counterman being right all the time and I don't want to waste the time. That was another little idiosyncrasy I learned when I had my auto parts store. Um, but I'll tell you, the online ordering with the cataloging is just so seamless and so efficient. It's just amazing. So within minutes, you type in the make, year, and model, you see the parts you want, you see the price, you click on it, hit the button, and a ticket runs out at the distributor. And then with our e-delivery management system, we're managing the deliveries. That invoice, when it was printed, automatically, if a delivery account pops up into e-delivery for the dispatcher to assign their drivers to go here, there, and everywhere. And that product has developed over the years to be phenomenal. The GPS tracking, what store they're at, how long they've been there, it's all electronic, and the efficiency. Because one time a guy says, how do you know when your driver's going to be back, and how do you know where they're going to be? And well, we just pray a lot that they come back with the proper part and the money. I mean, it was crazy because it's all manual. Now everything's electronic. We know exactly where that truck is, exactly what parts he's got on there, when he got to that particular place, when he left it, and that has also been an efficiency for the distributor mostly, but also the installer, because when we first brought eOffice out, I can remember this guy up in Washington said, "What's going on? These auto parts drivers, they're like the UPS guys. They're running in with the parts and getting things signed and running out and what happened?" Well, we put in eOffice, and in the office we also have an incentive program for the drivers. How many deliveries, how fast they made deliveries, etc. There's an incentive program sitting in there. So I tell them, do not speed, but you don't have to lollygag around and talk about the football game last night for 20 minutes to the customer, because we have time is money, and you know how that works. So those two products, I think, are the number one and number two products in our particular arsenal today that is widely used and very well accepted.
But it doesn't take away the total connections. It does weave all the paper together, but it doesn't stop the salesperson or the delivery person from still having that connection, because we know how important in business those connections are, right?
Well, we can put the connection and call it relationships. Yes. But one of the things we talk about with e-parts, say, listen, Mr. Counterman, here is, if a guy knows what he wants, he's going to click, 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 and the printer runs out. He doesn't need you. But we'll always need you, because the fact that there's hard to get parts, find stuff you got to find out, questions on items. So now you become more of a problem solver than a order taker, right? Their
Right.
expertise is more readily used.
It actually elevates the perception of the counter person.
Correct. Absolutely.
Well, Jim, you shared with us the difficulties that you had back then and the awesome products that Autologue has developed to help some of those and to keep those customers in touch with each other and the paper and all of the transactions flowing so much more efficiently. So I think that's going to wrap up here, episode 6 with Jim Franco. Jim, thank you so much for being with us today.
Once again, I appreciate you, Scott, and thank you for the opportunity. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Jim.